And welcome back. And this is what we're talking about. It's called Larry the Loon, and it's a Canadian book published by Canadians, written by Canadians, illustrated by Canadians. Loretta Rogers and Robert Bateman, thank you very much for coming in and joining us.
It's my pleasure.
It's terrific to have you here. And Loretta from Toronto, and you're now in BC.
Salt Spring Island.
Salt Spring Island.
That's right.
That's still part of BC, isn't it? Or are you separated off?
It's an argument surrounded by a body of water. That's what we are.
It's a famous island, so thanks very much for coming in when you're visiting us here in Toronto. Now let's just talk about the book. I read it. It's called, this termed a children's book. I'm telling you, I thought it was a great book. And some people think I'm childish, but I mean, it's a good read for everybody. But it's a very plaintive story, Loretta. The story is heart-rendering.
The story is a true story.
Yes.
And a year ago last summer, the Gossovitz family found this loon that was injured. And he couldn't fly and he couldn't dive, so he couldn't look after himself. They're usually very shy, but he knew he needed help, so we were all able to hand feed him, which is terrific because you can never get close to a loon.
That I couldn't believe. I couldn't believe it.
They wouldn't eat. It's something that they didn't catch.
And they're afraid of people.
Well, if they're very hungry, I guess you give in.
Very good point, Loretta.
Yeah. And so we all fed him and looked after him for about 10, 12 days. Then we finally got a wildlife group who would take a look, see what they could do for him.
Who would help out.
We knew he had a broken wing and a broken leg. In fact, the leg was crushed.
Oh. And so this happened, you figure, through a boat accident, was it? You think the loon was hurt by a boat?
We think he was probably hit by a boat. And
it really points out the fact that, I mean, loons are really, aside from the loony we have in our currency, they're a national treasure.
Absolutely. In fact, the map of the distribution of the loon is the map of Canada. And I consider that they are the icon, the symbol of our great Northland.
Well, you, Robert, you famous for your pictures. You have one of the first pictures in the book, and then you have a foreword.
Yes,
and
indeed.
You talk about an anecdote when you were at your own cottage.
At our own cottage in Haliburton. My brother and I were there, and we saw these yahoos, I call them, kids with a fast boat.
Yeah.
They're a menace, especially to loons.
Most kids are a menace at one time or another, but let's go
on. And they were trying to run over a family of loons. The parents didn't want to leave the babies, and so the parents could have got away and done deep dives, but they didn't want to leave the babies, and they were trying to hit them, these kids. Yeah. And my brother and I, we didn't have a motorboat. We jumped in a canoe, and the canoe was actually leaping out of the water as we tried to get there, but before we got there, 4 or 5 other boats from other cottagers had been seeing this, and they came vroom and surrounded these jerks, and I'm sure told them what
to do. I mean,
exactly.
Loons, I mean, things have changed and views have changed, and I think from my own experience, the population of loons must be increasing. So people are attuned to the fact that, I mean, they are a treasure and that you don't harass them.
Consciousness is being raised, and this book is helping to raise the consciousness.
And let's just talk about more than raising the consciousness. It's raising money for the Canadian Wildlife Federation.
Yes, the proceeds all go there.
Okay.
And they have a wonderful species at risk. Loons are not at risk, but there are many Canadian species at risk.
I think
and they got a wonderful program.
Borderline.
Yeah, borderline, and certainly in some areas. But the species at risk program, and I hardly recommend people go online, check out the Canadian Wildlife Federation and the Species at Risk program.
Now, it's a great cause for the two of you and everybody else involved in this book. We'll be talking to other people in a moment who are involved in it. To have this, it's a great Christmas gift, too, if you want to, or you were saying, Loretta, for children's parties?
Yeah.
Loretta has 3 wonderful paintings in there. I just have one.
Now, wait a second. Is that any indication of the talent? Robert, do you want to say anything about Loretta's talent? Here is one of them right here. I don't know how we're going to get this on TV, but we're going to try because we have wonderful people down there.
Loretta is a talented, prodigious painter. I think her output is more than mine, and you've been at it for years.
Yes.
No, but that's
lifetime almost.
No, Robert.
Except
I mean, we had that one on TV. That's a beautiful picture.
Yes, indeed.
That's from Lake Muskoka?
Lake Rosso.
Lake Rosso?
Where we got most of them.
Absolutely. And so let's talk then about the Wildlife Federation. It's getting the money from this and for more conservation. And Robert, you've been involved in that your whole life.
Yeah. Well, since the 80s, I've been very closely associated with the Canadian Wildlife Federation, and they've got this special program on now to help to protect the species at risk. And species keep getting more and more at risk. as each year goes by. And we need to not only raise consciousness, but raise funds to help the cause. And this is very much
And it's pretty good to have people like Loretta Rogers drawing pictures for you, too, isn't it?
I would think so, yeah. That's right.
Well, it's terrific. It's a great book, and I just, as I said, it's called a children's book, but I mean, every adult should read it as well, because it's a good story, it's extraordinarily well written, and it's one page will bring tears to your eyes. So there you go. Larry the Loon, thank you both for coming in. Thank you for doing it. It's a terrific book, and we're going to we'll talk more about it. We're going to take a break and come back with more of the people behind Larry the Loon.
Yep. Okay.
And we're back here with Judith McMurray and Doug Dunford. Doug, you are the illustrator of this book. Lots of other pictures in there. And Judith, you're the wordsmith.
I am.
So you had the story. Loretta was just here, and she said it's based on a true story of this loon that was injured. But you put it in an evocative sense. You put the words together. Is this your first children's book that you've written?
No, it's my 6th.
It's your 6th, so you know what you're doing.
Yes,
and
well,
you did it very,
some days.
very well. Well, some days we all have our bad days.
Some days.
Well, except for unless you're on TV. But let's just talk about the idea. Why did you take the idea of these people who befriended this loon and turn it into a book?
I heard about the story. Dr. Gossovitz told me about the story. True story of what happened. And he asked me, do you think you can write a children's story about it? And I said, sure. Because this same group of people did Chucky the Lonely Nuckshuck. That was our first book that we did. And we gave those monies to juvenile diabetes. Doug was very instrumental in painting those paintings. So this is our second book, and we decided to give it a try. So I came up with the idea of 2 endings, because one is the truth, and one is the ending that you would read to a small child before you put it to bed, because you want happy endings when you say goodnight.
Well, that's very important. You don't want a
Very
child to be
important.
concerned about things like life when you're going to sleep. So I mean, it's very, very nice that there are 2 endings, but also when you're talking about this story, there's more to it, Judith, than just a story, because you're talking about conservation, you're talking about feelings, you're talking about respect for wildlife.
Absolutely. And that's very, very important. As Bob Bateman mentioned, and Loretta mentioned earlier, this loon was killed by a boat.
Yeah.
Probably. This is what we think. We can't 100% attest to
most
that,
likely.
but most likely it was hit by a boat. And our waterways are covered with speeding people.
And the stories, though, of everybody taking care of it, it's a lovely story. Now, Doug, you live in Bracebridge near Muskoka, where the story came out.
Yes.
And you're an illustrator full-time, or did you get pulled into this?
I'm not an illustrator, I'm an artist.
I beg your pardon, yes.
But
there's a big difference, and I'm glad to be corrected.
Yes.
So you're an artist, and you did some drawings and pictures for this, and otherwise you sell your art?
Correct. I had done paintings years ago of loons, but then there were so many people painting loons that I lost interest. But what really interested me in doing a painting of this loon is that I got to see it, get up close to it, actually swam with it, fed it, so it became more important to me.
You did what?
Painting of it.
You did?
You swam with it?
Well, yes.
It
Because
should
it
be
was
called,
injured.
instead of Larry the Loon, it should be called Swimming with the Loons.
Well, actually, very interesting. When we had our art show to raise money for the Canadian Wildlife Federation in Port Carling, Ontario, we had spent all day raising money, selling books, and at the end of the day, when we're within eyesight of the restaurant that we're showing in, we're driving by this lake, and we saw this guy at the side of the road with a club, and he was pushing a loon off the highway. And the loon had actually, it had a lure that was caught in its wing in its leg.
Yep.
And I actually held the loon in my arms as it was trying to stab my arms and so forth.
Well, of course, because I didn't know whether you were a friend or not, and it was in pain.
And then another chap came along, and he was able to, with a tool, cut the lure from its wing and leg, and then we carried it down to the lake and put it in the water, and off it went.
It's been a loony summer.
It is, but people don't appreciate how beautiful these birds are. The cry of these birds at night is terrific,
So
and they're starting to. I mean, things are better than they were a generation ago, though, the way we treat
this
wildlife.
brings awareness.
Okay, well, there's no question about it. And it's a great book. It's a great book for everybody to buy for kids for Christmas. If you don't know what you want to get, there it is. Larry the Loon. It's in bookstores. And also, as you pointed out, all the proceeds go to the Canadian Wildlife Federation.
That's true.
So that's a great deal.
100%.
Terrific.
All the monies go.
Thank you for writing.
Thank
you
you.
for your artistry in this
Thank you.
book, and thanks for coming in today.
Thanks very much.
Okay, it is 12:54. It is 3 degrees, and this is Toronto's breaking news.